Hi, everyone. I just wanted to talk about Dr. Emma's protocol. She was on Dr. Oz's show about a week and a half ago, and I have really been bombarded with questions about what I think about the dosing and would this work. And there's a lot of people who are really intrigued by the idea of having twice as much food. I wonder why. Anyways, here is my response to Dr. Emma's HCG protocol, which is not Dr. Simeon's HCG protocol. First, she prescribes 500 international units. Now, this is where this comes from. She believes that the reason people don't lose muscle on the HCG protocol is because she thinks it's the relationship between HCG and testosterone. Well, if you were a man taking, or woman, taking testosterone to develop muscles, which would require, by the way, a lot of weightlifting. You don't just take testosterone and all of a sudden get muscular. People who are taking steroids, testosterone, for men especially, their testicles don't produce. What happens when you inject testosterone is your testicles say, hey, we've got enough, I don't need to produce any, and eventually your testicles shrivel up and they don't work anymore. Well, what people do today is men inject with their testosterone, they cycle HCG. The amount that men take or are prescribed for that reason is about 500 international units, because that's the amount for them that stimulates their Leydig cells, those are the cells that are in the testicles that create and produce testosterone. 500 international units of HCG is significantly stimulates that production of testosterone. So when they inject testosterone, they do it with HCG so that their testicles continue to function. And they get twice as much testosterone in their system when you add up what they're injecting and also what their own testicles are producing. So you get a lot of muscle without damage to the testicles. So when she created the idea of maybe it's testosterone, she doubled the dose to 500 calories or to 500 international units. In fact, that's not double the dose, that's about 4 times the dose. So it's way off. Now, with that said, if you look at the link between HCG and leptin, and the fact that it's a negative feedback loop, meaning more is not better in terms of stimulating leptin. If you were to use 500 international units of HCG, you're going to be hungrier. And for what she prescribes is twice as much food. The downside to this is the fact that by doubling your food intake, the metabolic demand for fat to be used as fuel is going to be less. So even though you could say, based on using hunger, a higher dose, you could find that ideal, leptin amount, which you absolutely could. You could lose fat on her protocol. It's just not going to be as rapid. But to me, the biggest downside is the fact that by doubling your food intake, you are not going to upregulate the mitochondria, which means you're not going to have an improved metabolism. So if you have a metabolic or a metabolism that is slow because you don't have the mitochondria, you don't have the demand for fuel, her protocol isn't going to improve your metabolism the same way that Dr. Simeon's did, which is why he created the protocol in the first place. It was for a metabolic disorder. So hers is a diet. It's not a protocol. The other thing you need to understand too is business. In order for her to make money nationally, she's going to have to create a prototype or a patentable program. She's been prescribing Dr. Simeon's protocol, so it takes all the attention away from her. Now she has Dr. Emma's protocol, so now who is getting the attention? So obviously, I'm getting bombarded with questions about Dr. Emma's protocol, which makes absolutely no sense, by the way, because I'm digressing. I'm going to go back to the testosterone thing. First of all, testosterone doesn't prevent starvation. Testosterone actually has very little to do with fueling mechanisms at the cellular level. So for her to even say, oh, it's testosterone, it just goes to show that she's a doctor and not a physiologist. It's obvious she doesn't really understand fueling mechanisms or the Krebs cycle or starvation. No mention of leptin whatsoever. It's so freaking obvious when you understand these hormones and you understand starvation what the answer is, and testosterone is not the answer. It's just crazy. I mean, think of it this way. If testosterone prevented starvation, guess what? Every man would be immune to starvation. It's just freaking nutty. Anyways, but it is patentable. Look, she gets her Emma's protocol. So I truly believe that the attempt really is to create a program that's patentable, and by doubling the food intake, there's some weird idea that people think that it's more marketable when in actuality it's not. There's no science based on that. There's nothing besides making money. It's really, really kind of crazy. In fact, the more I talk to doctors and teach them about this process, the more willing they're to prescribe. It has nothing to do with calories. If they're thinking calories, they're totally outdated, and chances are they're not going to prescribe whether it's 1,800 or 600 calories. They're just not going to do it. Anyways, so that's my opinion. Based on what I know, about Dr. Emma's program, I have talked to a few of her patients who just called me out of just wanting help and wanting to be more informed, and they weren't happy because it's a diet. I don't care who you are, Dr. Oz, Dr. Emma, Dr. blah, blah, blah. If it's a diet, it's never really going to work anyways. So have fun with that. If some of you do it, good luck. I'd love to hear your feedback. How'd it go?